Hey folks, it's Simon. We're going to get going in just a minute. Welcome. Let people get settled. Try to start and end on time here at NDN, at Hopium. I was at NDN for a long time, so that's still going to happen from time to time. Just bear with me as we hurdle into our new world here together. But thank you for being here today. And I'll say that I want to welcome folks over Zoom. We also are live on YouTube. I've got a YouTube channel, and we try to make sure that all of our events are also available live on YouTube. And this will be recorded. If you have friends that want to see it afterwards, this will be up on the Hopium site and also on YouTube. If you haven't checked out my YouTube channel, there's an enormous amount of content there. Not all of it actually comes over to Hopium. There's just so much. And there's been so much. So you see that as a complement to the Hopium site and to the Hopium experience. But the primary thing we do here together is that the Hopium is on Hopium Chronicles and on Substack. Okay, let me get going, folks. Welcome, everybody. It's Simon Rosenberg from Hopium Chronicles, my new political home. It's great to be here with all of you. This is a monthly chat we do that's live and open to the public. And so if you have friends who want to do a test drive of our work, this is a great place to bring people. And also for those of you who are watching, this will be recorded and on the Hopium Chronicles site later today, also on YouTube. What I'm going to do today is speak for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll open it up for a robust Q&A. All the way up to 2 o'clock Eastern time today. So just to begin, like I often do, is just to remind everybody about what happened in 2022, because it is sort of the foundational understanding that we have about where we are today in American politics. In 2022, we outperformed expectations, right? The red wave still hasn't come all these months later. And what's remarkable is that in the Battleground States, we actually outperformed in many of them our 2020 numbers, right? We outperformed 2020 in Arizona, Colorado, Georgia, Michigan, Minnesota, New Hampshire, and Pennsylvania. So we didn't just hold our own in what was supposed to be a very adversarial election. We actually gained ground in the battlegrounds, the most important states in the country. And it was a remarkable performance. And in large part, it's due to the robust grassroots that we've developed in the Democratic Party. Our candidates had a 4 to 5 to 1 cash on hand advantage in many cases over their Republican counterparts. We were able to control the information environment in these campaigns, tell our story, indict them. And then also this additional money, this unprecedented amount of money that we had, allowed us to build these robust grassroots operations with all the volunteers who are now able to volunteer from anywhere in the country into swing districts, swing states. And we pushed, our early vote performance was higher than it was in 2018, 2020, in a year where we were supposed to be, where the intensity was supposed to be down for us. We actually saw better performance in the early vote than we did in the 2018, 2020 elections. And then we had election day itself, which was a remarkable success story, right? We gained governorship, state house seats. We almost, we came within a few thousand votes of keeping the House, essentially a jump ball. And we picked up a seat in the Senate. Remarkable, one of the best midterm performances in American history. And to a great degree, thanks to all of you for helping make this possible. But outside the battlegrounds, where we didn't have these robust campaigns, we lost ground. We lost ground in California and Texas and Florida and New York, the 4 biggest states. And it's a reminder that while we can, inside where we run these robust campaigns because of all this money and the activity that we have, where we don't have those campaigns, the Republicans are louder than we are and still have an advantage over us. They can still push us around in the information environment and bully the national media. The combination of Fox News and Donald Trump and all the tools that they have, they're still louder than we are. And so part of the argument I've been making about what we need to do now is we need to keep running these remarkable campaigns in the battlegrounds. I'd much rather be us than them heading into 2024. We've had now 3 very successful elections in the battleground states, the ones that are going to determine the outcome of the presidency in 2024. But we have to do more than that now. We have to get louder every day. We have to close the loudness gap with the right. It's just too big an issue for us. And Fox got a slap on the wrist this week, right? As Bulwer called it, they paid a parking ticket, for having fomented an insurrection and lied to the American people for months and months. We are in, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this more, we're in a very challenging information environment. And so we've got to work together to close that loudness gap. And that's why I've been encouraging people to get loud, to become information warriors for their democracy, to spread the good news about the Democrats and Joe Biden in whatever ways are comfortable. In addition to the postcards, the texting, the phone calls that we do in campaigns, we need to be operating 24/7, 365 the way that they are, right? That's how their politics works. We need to do campaigns plus and become louder and become information warriors. We have partners in this, right? We've got organizations like Pod Save America, Daily Kos, and Resolute Square, and Courier Newsroom, and Deep State Radio, and the Midas Touch. I mean, there are a lot of innovators and who are out there trying to help make sure that our values and our ideas are, brought to the American people. But there's a lot we can do. And the way I talk about this is that, if I worked in the war room 31 years ago, and I'd like to think of the war room today not as 20 sweaty kids drinking Red Bulls and producing video content, but 1 million, 2 million, 3 million proud patriots getting up every day, wired together, networked together, amplifying good, positive content, putting it into our daily discourse. I think in the next 2 years, the way that we are most effectively going to make up the loudness gap is by asking Democrats to get loud and themselves and to start taking control of the information discourse in this country. And I think the most important thing we can do in this year, in the narrative, the story that we can all tell together, is on the economy. And many of you who've listened to me talk know, and I won't go through all the details today, but since 1989, there have been 48 million jobs created in America. 46 million of them have been created under Democratic presidents, basically all of them. Democrats have now had 3 consecutive presidents where the economy has grown, the recession and the deficit has come down, and America's made remarkable progress. And we've had 3 consecutive Republican presidents where we've seen recessions, higher deficits, and American decline. And establishing that fundamental contrast and helping Democrats win the economic debate with the Republicans seems to me to be the most important thing we can do this year together to position us in a place where we can be successful in 2024. So I'm producing a lot of content to help inform people who want to get smarter about our recent economic history and Joe Biden's presidency. I have a presentation called With Democrats, Things Get Better, which you can watch on our website. I also produce, regular analysis of what's happening economically. And so please use that information to help inform your communities about how the fact that, when Democrats are in power, things get better. When Republicans are in power, things don't. And this basic contrast is one that I think we have to work really hard to try to establish. I think this is within our power to do this year. Navigator, who I often reference in their polling, did some testing on economic messaging a few weeks ago, and it showed that when people are informed about what's happened with the economy, Democrats can get into positive territory on the economy. This is a doable thing, and we need to do it together. The second thing I think we need to do this year is to really understand that the Republicans have become even more extreme than they were last cycle. We all keep hoping they're going to take the off-ramp from MAGA and this extremism, but it's not happening. And the extremism of their party, I think, is becoming more understood by more people. I think there is this kind of grassroots rebellion happening against MAGA. You're seeing it, what I call greater MAGA. You're seeing it in Tennessee, right? You're seeing it with Disney and Bob Iger. You're seeing it in Wisconsin with the remarkable success that we had in that recent election. And I think people are aware that the Republicans have gone a little crazy. I mean, I think there was a hope that it was just sort of a phase. They would come back to being kind of country club Republicans. But I think there's a growing understanding that this is getting dangerous and scary, and that we need to do something. We need to rise up and challenge it more aggressively, not just in elections, but in our day-to-day discussions and discourse. And you're seeing young Democrats all across the country, right? You're seeing protests, but you're also seeing younger Democratic elected officials like Jeff Jackson and AOC and others who I think are more media savvy and understand the media moment really starting to assert themselves in the national discourse. It's very encouraging, I think, what we're seeing now. And it's really important because I think that what we need to do this cycle is to recognize that they're abandoning political terrain. They're abandoning, competitive political terrain. They're giving us an opportunity to grow our coalition, to expand our coalition, to take more political real estate, both demographically and geographically. And so that's why I've been advocating this idea of we need to get to 55. We need to not just be settling for 51% in a presidential election, but we should be shooting for 55 in 2024 and really trying to blow out the election like we just did in Wisconsin, like we did in Colorado and in Pennsylvania, and in New Hampshire, and one more state this last cycle, right? We were able to get to 55% in a bunch of the battleground states. We're doing that through expansion. This is not about repositioning. This is not about being in a defensive crouch. This is about being on offense and going big and having a strategy, a man on the moon kind of strategy. To me, the most important piece of that is something we could do this year, which is to really launch a serious national voter registration drive with young people. And I can talk more about that in the Q&A. But that's certainly something I think in terms of going on offense this year together, right? Win the economic debate with the Republicans, get to 55, expand our coalition, which is one of the reasons why, I'm promoting Donna Deegan so much in Jacksonville, the largest city in Florida. If we were to flip a Republican-held city at this point, with Trump and DeSantis being from Florida, all of you, I often get asked, what's the road back in Florida? How do we come back from the recent defeats that we've had? Well, we have to do it by helping candidates like Donna Deegan, who can become powerful statewide officials for Democrats, win in key competitive races. Jacksonville's a marginally Democratic city. Guess when the election is? In the middle of May in an off year? Who did that, right? It's designed to prevent turnout. So the work that we do through postcarding and giving money and texting and phone calling, which is all available on her site, can really make a difference in terms of turnout. And if we have a strong Democratic turnout, she'll win. There's more Democrats than Republicans in Jacksonville, and she's polling very well. And so I'm very confident that this will be the next big win for us after Wisconsin to keep the momentum going. So please learn about her race. She does have a debate tonight. For any of you who've grown to like her, I know that she's got a lot of fans now in the Hopium community. I put a link in the email today and on our site where you can watch the debate live tonight at 7 if you choose. Next, the information environment. I want everyone to know that when I began Hopium, my theory of how I would grow this community was by slowly migrating my large Twitter following, to here. And that over 3 or 4 months, enough people would kind of migrate over that this would be financially self-sustaining and, we'd have a robust community. And I don't know that it's really well understood, but 10 days ago, basically Elon Musk severed the connection between Twitter and Substack. That's continued. When I post anything on Twitter that has a Substack link, it basically gets no views. It's throttled, as they call it in the business. He's doing it for everyone who's writing on Substack. And what it means is my 130,000 Twitter followers, who are my followers, not his followers, my followers, now cannot see work that I do here on Substack. And Elon is obviously operating in the opposite of what would one assume to be free speech, because this is free content over a free site to people that already are my followers that I can't reach any longer. And so this need to build this next thing that I've been talking about, to get louder, to not let them push us around, to innovate and try new forms of communication like here at Substack, like we're doing. There's a greater urgency to this now than ever before because of Elon's just wild behavior over the last few weeks on Twitter, and the notion that he's really trying to do everything he can to attack non-conservative media organizations and institutions. I mean, just in the last few weeks, he's publicly attacked the New York Times, NPR, the BBC, obviously Democrats every day, and Twitter, and he's degrading Twitter, which was an important place for us to gather. He's waging a right-wing assault against non-right-wing institutions in America. And I think it gets to this final point I want to make about this, is that part of the reason I'm here and I'm doing this work with you is that I don't think we really understand in America that we're in deep into an information war against oligarchical and autocratic regimes who are penetrating into our discourse here, that are laundering their information through Fox News and allies here in the United States. We don't have a consciousness about this information war that we're really in. It's a global information war. And I'm bitterly angry personally about what's happened with Elon and Twitter over the last few weeks, because it makes it harder for us to do our work. But I'm also worried about the future of democracy and free speech and open discourse and the kind of society that we all want to live in. And so we are also going to start doing more work. I'm going to be putting more effort into this to really trying to also come up with a policy agenda that allows us to think through what we can do. Just like the Second Amendment is not unlimited, that there were limits into the Second Amendment. The First Amendment is also not unlimited. I mean, there has to be reasonable ways that we all communicate and restore integrity to our daily discourse here in the United States. And it's an urgent thing. We're seeing teenagers skyrocketing levels of depression in teenagers because of the information environment that we're living in. It's a public health crisis. It's a national security crisis. It's a democracy crisis. And we're not even really talking about it. The TikTok discussion a few weeks ago was, and to me, so disappointing, because it only really began to scratch the surface of the conversation that we need to have about restoring integrity to our daily information discourse and restore the kind of democratic discourse that's so essential for healthy societies. We've got a lot of work to do on that, and I'll be doing that more. And then finally, my last point before questions is thank you. Thank you for being here. Thanks to all of you who are working hard and worked hard in the election, continue to work hard in Wisconsin, are working hard in Donna Deegan's race in Jacksonville, who are helping run organizations all around this country that are trying to make our country better. Thank you, all of you. I'm, doing my work. I'm doing as much as I can to come speak to the groups that are doing the work on the ground. I've got 4 events this week alone that I'm speaking. I'm trying to do as many as I can. If you want to invite me to come speak, there's a on the Hopium site, there's on the nav bar, there's a way to request me for a speaking gig. I've got probably 6 or 7 more scheduled in the next few weeks. I'm doing it because I just want to say thanks. And I want to say I'm really it feels so great to be in community with so many proud patriots around this country who've gotten off the couch and are doing the work. It's all of you that have saved our democracy. And so the least I can do is show up and help encourage your communities to keep doing the work. And so thanks, everybody. I really appreciate you being here today. Obviously, we got a lot to talk about, but those are some opening thoughts. And let's get to the Q&A. I'm going to stick to the written Q&A for now. So just type questions or comments into the Q&A box. And Dudleen, I know that you may take a few questions from YouTube and get them to me as well, so I can make sure the YouTube audience is getting a say. Let me just let me pull up to get into the Q&A. Susan asked a great question, which is, I'm new to Hopium. Can you explain the name and where it came from? Let me address that. And I'm great. The name has been a little bit controversial because some people are confused by it. But the term Hopium was developed during the 2022 election when I was fighting the red wave to describe people who believed that the Democrats were going to do better than the data showed, right? Including me. I was accused of being a hopium purveyor, right? Which is hope is some, in the lingo, right? It's some combination of sort of delusional opium smoking and hope, right? But as a guy who worked for Bill Clinton, who was the man from hope, and Barack Obama, who was this purveyor of hopefulness, right? I have a different take. The way that I use the word, and there's a podcast on the site you can listen to where I go into this in more detail. To me, what hopium is the ability to will something that you want to be true to become true. In 2022, we were told the election was not going to go our way. We were told a red wave was going to come. We didn't accept that reality. We hoped things would be better, but we just didn't hope. We did the work. We changed the future. We changed the outcome of the election through our work and by supporting the candidates. We didn't give up. We didn't go into a defensive crouch. People put their head down and did the work. And so for me, in the way that I'm using hopium, is that it's the ability not to hope for a better future, but through work to make it so. And that's the way that we use that term here. And I know it's a little bit confusing. For now, we're sticking with it because it really does speak to the kind of community we're trying to build here. This is a community of doers, right? We're trying to get stuff done in the real world. We're not willing to accept, we're not willing to obey in advance, as I write about in my work, as Timothy Snyder calls it. We are fighting the red wave every day. We are fighting MAGA every day. We want better for our country, and we're just unwilling to accept anything less. And that's what we're doing here at Hopium. So Susan, welcome, and hopefully you'll stay involved. Wendy asked a great question. Is there data on the racial, age, gender breakout of the voter turnout in the Wisconsin? There is, and Tom Bonnier and I are going to be getting back together and doing some work. My buddy from the election, a remarkably brilliant data guy, analyst, there is, and I'll try to find it, Wendy, and put it up. There's been some preliminary work done. We had a big youth turnout, for example. The other thing people should be aware of is that there's just, if you're interested in youth voting, Circle, which I was on the board of for 15 years at Tufts University, just put out a pretty remarkable and comprehensive look at youth voting in 2022. And it's on their website. Circle's part of what's called Tisch College at Tufts University. You know, John Dale Wope in Harvard and Tisch Circle do most of the really important work on youth voter participation in the country. I'll certainly be trying to get some of the Circle folks to come talk with us. John and I do a lot of work together. John's got a new poll coming out of the Harvard IOP at 18 to 29-year-olds any day. Will help us give us a baseline of where things are. But I need to, I will see if I can find the Wisconsin stuff, but there's also now a lot of data coming out about 2022 that is helping us get a better understanding of what happened. All of this is important for how we go forward, right? Do Republicans have an open, Mary asked, do Republicans have an open forum like this? And hey, Doodling, let me know, are there any questions coming from YouTube? Just let me know, just type it into the way that we chat with each other. Do Republicans have an open forum to this? In addition to pro-life guns, burn it all down, their strategy seems to be raising dark money. Mary, let me address that because this is a really important point and really foundational to how we are different. I mean, part of what I talk about in my With Democrats Things Get Better presentation is that this idea that there's a left and a right and that we're sort of equally virtuous and equally full of vice, that we're sort of two sides of one coin, is a ridiculous way of looking at American politics. There's been one party that's been repeatedly constructive and made the country better and another party that hasn't. There's asymmetry in our politics, not symmetry. And anytime commentators in the United States try to frame our politics as left and right, they're selling us short and exaggerating the goodness of the Republican Party. It's a serious problem. And my effort with Democrats is to sort of help everyone understand how critical it is that we reject this sort of facile symmetry between left, right, Democrat, Republican. It's really about more forward, backward, good, bad than it is left, right? This kind of left, right thing is a distortion. It's a right-wing meme, a right-wing talking point to diminish the goodness of our party and our good work. And one of the ways that we're really different, another way, in addition to all the others that we're really different, is that we've made a decision to put our work and our money into campaigns, and they've put it into dark money outside groups. The way we're doing it is better. It's not different, it's better than they are. And the reason why is that you'd much rather, this is 30 years of politics, and I was helpful in developing the strategy for the DCCC in 2018, is that you'd much rather, if you had $1 million, you'd much rather have the candidate have that money in their campaign than an outside group. It's far more likely that the campaign, the people on the ground doing the work are going to spend that money wisely than it is some guy doing cookie cutter ads in DC or wherever it is, right, where they're producing ads for 20 campaigns simultaneously. And so we as a party have really created a mechanism to fund our campaigns at an unprecedented level. And in this last election, our campaigns had 4, 5, 6-to-1 cash on hand advantage over the Republicans. That's never happened before. There's never been that level of an imbalance. And you need to understand when you hear all this stuff about all their money, some of this is red wavy bullshit, right? It's their ability to sort of say, we're raising all this dough, we got all this money. But let me give you an example. In addition to the fact that our campaigns outraised, we could do grassroots organizations, which they don't have. We could tap into the passion of millions of people, which they can't do. They tap into the greed of several thousand people, as opposed to us tapping into the passion and love of country of millions and millions of people, is that campaigns get what's called the lowest unit rate. It means that when they buy an ad, they are by law required to be given the lowest possible rate. That's not true of dark money and outside groups. So in Las Vegas, for example, this last cycle, every ad that our candidates were putting on the air, the Republicans, to get that same reach, needed to had to spend 7 times more money per ad than we did, because we were getting lowest unit rate and they weren't. And so even though they spent more money than we did, we got more ads on the air and reached more people. So I want everyone not to be so scared of the dark money stuff. The dark money stuff is actually a huge problem for them. It's a huge strategic error by them that they've become so dependent on a handful of very wealthy people and not building real traditional campaigns than we are. Our campaign apparatus and our grassroots is stronger than it's ever been in my 30 years in politics. This is our secret weapon. This is how we blew it out in Wisconsin. This is how we can blow it out if we all engage in Jacksonville. These muscles that we have become really significant. They don't have anything like it. And it was interesting that after the 2022 election, what was the one universal cry coming from Republicans? Well, we got beat in the early vote. Well, what they were really saying is that we have campaigns and they don't, and it's a big problem. And it is a big problem, and it will continue to be a big problem for them in 2024. It's another reason why, as we head into 2024, I would much rather be us than them, and on every level, right? Morally, policy-wise, but also politically, we are stronger than they are. The Democratic Party today is strong. Joe Biden has been a good president. The country is better off. We are outperforming them repeatedly in the battlegrounds. They're the ones who are on defensive. We're on offense. We got to go big, expand our coalition, keep taking more political real estate, and hopefully break the back of MAGA in this next election to help loosen its dark grip on the Republican Party. Sylvia from Tono Latino, hey Sylvia, who's on YouTube. I know we want to focus on positive messages, but I'd like your take on sharing or not sharing efforts by the GOP to suppress young voters, leaked audio from Cleta Michael today. Yeah, look, we have to both tell our story and indict them. But the critical thing is I think we spend too much time living in their ugliness and not enough time talking about our goodness. And I think this is a discipline thing, right? I think that, it's like a car crash. Like, we know who they are. They've told us for years now. We don't have to keep reminding each other of it. We have to stop sharing, even though I did it this week, right? We have to stop sharing videos of Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's like we have to get more disciplined about this. If you've got 3 things you can say to somebody, 2 of them should be positive and 1 of them should indict them, but start with the positive. We can do both. It's not a choice, right? But we also, I think, if you spend too much time in their ugliness, I think it becomes debilitating. I think it can cause you to lose faith, to lose hopium, right? Hopium becomes the solution to this. And part of what I'm trying to do in my work, and some of you have heard me talk about this, is I'm trying to help Democrats speak more in declarative sentences. I became very struck during the 2022 cycle on Twitter about how I would post something saying, hey, this is really good. And then 10 Democrats in a row would say, but Simon, what about this? Or however, Simon, or I don't, but you left that out. And when the but comes, when the however comes, right? Instead of the Joe Biden is a good president, period. The Democratic Party is strong, period. The country is better off, period. When it becomes a comma and a but or however, and you inject doubt into that statement, you're doing Republicans' work for them. by taking their arguments and bringing it into our discourse. You're doing their work for them. We should be doing our work for ourselves and not doing their work for them. They're really good at putting negative sentiment about Democrats into daily discourse. There's no reason we should be doing it. And this is, I think, a really, I think part of what's happened is that we have been beaten down by right-wing media so badly and so many right-wing memes that we internalize their attacks against us, and it creates doubt. I think this is part of their main strategy, right? And by not living there, but by living in, it's Carl Cantilla just tweeted out, he's an economic guy on Twitter, said there was a CEO he just saw an interview of who said he wished America would stop people talking down the economy. The economy's booming, it's doing great, right? We have lived in this place of where the Republicans now for years and years and years have pumped negative sentiment into our discourse every day. It's their fundamental strategy. They want us to feel bad about our democracy, our country, the American project, our institutions, our leaders, each other, the FBI, whatever, right? And we have to recognize that this is a strategy that they want us to feel bad about America, right? It's why some of this is laundering the work of outside countries who want us to feel bad about the American project. One of the ways we fight that in this information war that we're in is by putting more positive sentiment, by being more intentional, but not being Pollyannish, right? Not it being inauthentic, not it being silly, but being connected to the greatness of this country and the remarkable progress that we've made. And that's what my presentation with Dems is about, is I give you a lot of argumentation and narrative building around the remarkable progress that we've made. And I'll make two fundamental statements right now. In the last decade, it's been better to be alive in the world than any time in human history. And that's happened because of the Democratic Party, right? We built a world after World War II around freedom and opportunity. And more people today have more opportunity to pursue their own dreams than any time in human history. And there's no question about that, right? That's not even an open area for debate. And our party was instrumental in creating and designing that world that's created more opportunity for more people than any time in human history. There's also a lot of data suggesting that it's actually better to be alive in America today than it's ever been in all of our history. I mean, just in the last few months, we've seen the lowest peacetime unemployment rate since World War II, the lowest poverty rate ever recorded, the lowest uninsured rate ever recorded in American history. Crime is a fraction of what it was a generation ago. The teenage pregnancy rate is down. Cancer deaths are way down. By so many measures, we are better off today than we have been at any time in our history. And I think this question about why we don't feel that is at the core of the work that we're doing here at Hopium. It's not because I'm Pollyannish. It's not because I don't see the data. It's because the data, like my data, showed me that the election was going to be a close competitive election in 2022. The data, and not a red wave, the data shows the economic and all this other data shows me that it's a better time to be alive today than it's probably been in all of American history. And we should be loud and proud about that, because the progress that we've made since 1989 and this new age of globalization began and the Cold War ended has been almost entirely due to our party. And so we should own the success and the progress that's happened in America. And yeah, too many people are being left behind. There's too much wealth concentration. All those things are true, but they can be true while we can also acknowledge that things are much better than they were. And too often, I think Democrats live in the things that are not true and haven't happened versus the things that have happened. And I think that we have to get better about acknowledging progress, because it also builds a better case for continuing to go. Why would voters want us to keep moving our agenda if it wasn't successful? What we have to do is take credit for the wins that we have to say that, look, we can make people's lives better. Now we've got more work to do. But starting with a place that the Democratic Party sucks and can't do anything, why would you ever give that party the authority to continue to do good work? You wouldn't, right? And it's sort of it's how we got to a place where we've, in our own conversations about ourselves, we've become so disconnected from the greatness of the Democratic Party is something that I'm trying to work on here at Hopium. It's a central part of the project here. Let me try to Let me try to answer shorter so we can take more questions. Sue, Sue, great question. How do I get outside my blue bubble? It's okay to stay in your blue bubble. It's who you can reach. It's who your network is. Make them better informed. Make them more optimistic. Make them, and remember, think about the way that I'm talking about how information moves, right? If 1 million of us together are well-informed, spreading good information out through our networks, we can reach 40, 50 million people a day, right? And so having that million, what I'm doing with Hopi is I'm trying to make sure that million, that 500,000, sort of the Marines hitting the beach, whatever you want to call it, that all of you have information that you can spread through your networks. And then you're hitting blue people, Sue, but some of those blue people are hitting red people and undecided people, right? The way to think about it, it's like throwing a big boulder into a small pond, and the sort of the way the information flows outward, right, into, it keeps going. And so don't feel that by you only reaching blue bubble, right, that you're not doing the work. You're doing the work. It's really important, because the more that we expand that core, there's a big difference between the war room, the new war room, being 500,000 people and being 2 million people. So if you can convert some of those 2 million, those blue bubble people into information warriors spreading through their networks, we get louder and louder and louder. The chorus gets louder. There's more voices in the chorus, right? We get louder and louder and louder. And, I would rather, again, have the loudness be coming from citizens than coming from Fox News. Again, we are building this bottom-up information warrior concept is a better way to move narrative and story through than it is through relying on, Tucker Carlson and Laura Ingraham, right? And the corruption of and awfulness of Fox News, quote unquote Fox News, right? So, this is a little bit of a okay, Simon, this sounds interesting. You may be totally full of shit, right? I don't think I am. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, and I was a TV producer and writer for ABC News. I worked in the war room in 1992. I've been sort of the front lip of this information transition and evolution. And we have to not accept the corrupt, screwed up information environment that we have in the United States today. We have to fight it through being louder. We have to innovate through using new platforms and encouraging new organizations like the organizations I discussed earlier. And then there needs to be a policy agenda that is really in a public conversation about the need to restore a greater degree of integrity to our discourse. It's just not okay that Fox News lies every day. It's not okay that Elon just wakes up and bans people from Twitter. It's not okay. These things aren't okay. It's not okay that Elon is blocking my Substack writing to my own followers on Twitter. It's not okay, and we need to say it, right? We need to start by saying not okay, okay. Where we get to from a policy standpoint, how we implement these things over time. Part of political leadership is about condemning things that are wrong. And what is going on right now in the way that the Republicans are using and polluting and degrading our information environment, it's wrong. And we need to say it. And we have to start there. And what's interesting is the person who probably has done more to challenge Ron DeSantis, other than Donald Trump, has been Bob Iger, the president, the head of Disney, one of the most respected business leaders in America. His standing up and going after DeSantis, I think, has created a huge permission structure among wealthy elites in the United States to look at this guy as the nutbag that he is, as the extremist nutbag that he is. And you're seeing, far more now resistance to DeSantis among the elites that he needs to fund his campaign against Trump. And I think at this rate, I would be surprised if DeSantis even runs for president. I mean, I think this has been one of the worst rollouts of a presidential campaign in American history, or at least modern American history. The guy is a loathsome figure. I will tell you that my own just general feelings about him are about as negative as I've ever had against a politician in my entire career. And what is happening to him now is terrific in the way that he's burning up. And we have to keep the pressure on, because what he's doing, Florida is a remarkable state. It was a history of open government. It had remarkable political leaders. It's not a right-wing state. It's a swing state. It's a complicated state. It's one of the most complicated states in the country. What he's doing there is out of character with the Florida that I've known and worked in my entire adult life. And we've got to help liberate the people of Florida from his misguided leadership. And it's important. It's one of the reasons I care so much about the Donna Deegan race. I've done a lot of work in Florida. I've spent an enormous amount of political time there in my career. It was one of the first places I ever worked as a young field guy. I went to Lawton Chiles' second inaugural in 1994. I mean, I care about Florida a lot. It's a remarkable place. And we can't let our brothers and sisters in Florida feel that they're alone. We got to be there with them. And this Donna Deegan race can really make a big difference. And I hope all of you will join me. Annie asked, do I post in Mastodon, Post, and Spoutable? I'm on Post. I'm going to, for now, really focus on Substack. And Substack has just launched a new service called Notes, which is a Twitter-like tool, which all of you should check out. I don't know what's going to happen with it. It's like all these other things. It's an experiment. It's why Elon got so angry at Substack, because he felt that Substack was producing something that could actually compete with Twitter. I don't know that the solution to what comes next is more social media. I think there are limitations to social media, moderated social media. And I don't think that what's going to happen next is we're not going to create a new Twitter. I don't think we're ever going to have what we just have with Twitter ever again. I think it's going to become something else. It's going to be, I don't know what it is. But if we try to recreate Twitter, I think we're going to fail. I think we have to create the next thing. And that next thing is some combination of, video and text and audio. I don't know what it is, but part of what happened, and I know this now from all the work I've been doing, that what happened during COVID is that an enormous amount of our politics moved to Zoom and to video. And far more Americans are consuming their politics through video, through TikTok, through YouTube, through Zoom. And that, video is now more important than it's ever been in our political discourse. And video is a little bit of a challenge sometimes on social media, the way it's currently constructed. So I don't know what's going to happen, but the reason I sort of made this really major commitment to Substack is that I felt that Substack was very, first of all, very well designed. It's very easy to use as somebody like me, right? And it's easy to produce, but it has audio and video. It has text. It's going to have live streaming at some point, like YouTube, hopefully this summer, the sooner the better. It has now a Twitter-like function. And it has the most set of things that we need, I think, in this next phase. So I'm going to figure this out. But for me, what I would ask, if you want to figure out how you can help me, is I need more help now in signing up both free and paid subscribers. The rate of my acquisition of paid subscribers since Elon went to war has slowed way down. It's just a reality. And it means I've got to sort of take different tactics in terms of expanding the community than I was expecting. And I can do that. I mean, we can do that together. But the growth has been great. And the community we're building here is great. I think this project is working. I'm really enjoying it. I'm having a lot of fun with all of you, probably too much fun. I am trying to answer everybody's questions. I don't always get to it. And if I don't, I apologize. We've had a lot of engagement on the site so far, and it's been really wonderful to be here with all of you. Let me try to go to some other folks that haven't had a question yet. Annette asked, and this got asked earlier about Cleta Mitchell disenfranchising young voters. Look, we know what they're doing, right? I mean, this isn't news. I don't know why anybody, I don't know, we just can't get hot and bothered about this stuff. What we need to do is, what are we going to do, right? And what we have to do is we need to launch a national campaign to register young voters. I mean, that's what we have to do. And if we don't do it as a national party, it has to be party-led, and as well as outside groups. This is not the responsibility of people with 501c3s, and they're doing great work, and groups like Rise and others have done phenomenal work. There's a lot, Project 72, there's a lot of, but this has to become something that is the core of our politics. The winning with young voters and expanding participation rates of young voters, as I write about in my Get to 55 memo, needs to be central to everything it means to be a Democrat. It can't be something that's at the kids' table, that's left to the leftovers, that we'll get to it, when we can. This has to be center and core. I think politically in 2023, the two most important things we can do, the whole party, all of us, win the economic debate and launch a national voter registration drive for young people. If we can increase the level of participation of young people, we can really blow it out in 2024. It just shouldn't be something that we accept that the most democratic part of the electorate is the part that votes the least. We can change that. We have the money, we have the resources, we have the strategic intent, we have the tools to do that, and we can. And so, I think that's, look, remember, we just can't, it's really important that for us not to give them more power than they have, right? Their party's a mess. They're divided, they're fighting with each other. They put up crazy candidates last time, right? They don't have a policy agenda that anybody cares about. They're in the 20s and 30s on most of the major issues. We have to, we got to pull the curtain back on the wizard here a little bit. They're a mess. They're a disaster. They're for the country. They're a political mess. We have to stop being scared of them. We've been beating them in election after election. We have to get past the basic framework I want to challenge everybody to think about is when you get up tomorrow, you think Democrats are strong, Republicans are weak. Democrats are united, they're divided, right? We've got a positive agenda that can make the country better. They've got an agenda that's going to put us into American decline. We've been a party that's done good. They've been a party that haven't done their part. Whatever that box, those message boxes, Dan Pfeiffer calls it, however you put those things together, we have to stop being so blown around by their bullshit. This is a fundamental thing we have to get over. We have to be less blown around by their bullshit and more excited about all the good things that we do as a baseline kind of way of approaching our politics if we really want to beat them. And so, they're going to keep doing their stuff, like no surprise. No one should be surprised about. Listen, if you're willing to try to overturn an election and install the guy in who was not the guy who won the election, then you're willing to do anything. We can't be surprised anymore about their venality and their illiberalism. They did the ultimate thing in 2021. And so, this is who they are, right? Cheating, gaming the system. They sort of let me go through one thing data-wise. I forgot to mention this in the Get to 55 discussion. In 1992 to 2004, we averaged 47% in presidential elections. And then me and others, identified during that period, there was a new coalition emerging for the Democrats made up of millennials and Hispanics who were new. They were a growing part of the electorate, and they created a real opportunity for us that if we leaned into it, we could expand our coalition. And in the 4 elections since we began really leaning into Hispanics and millennials in the 2006 cycle is when it really happened. We've averaged 51% of the vote. We've jumped 4 points. And what I'm saying now is that there's now another opportunity like that to jump another 4 points. And I want to just say this for everyone here to recognize that we've averaged 51% of the vote over the last 4 elections. The last time we averaged over 50 over 4 elections was in FDR's presidency. So our recent run has been the strongest run of our party since the 1930s and 1940s. And we are the majority party now. And I think that part of what you have to recognize is the Republicans basically at some level understand that, they've only broken 50% of the vote in presidential elections one time since 1988, right? They understand that we are the majority and they're the minority. And they're not willing to do what it's required to build a majority politics. So instead, what they're going to try to do is to reshape politics that a minority can govern and rule, essentially apartheid, right? In essence, right? An American apartheid. That's their strategy. We know that. So we have to continue to push our numbers up and better defending our democracy in all the ways that we do. But we need to be eyes wide open about this. We can't be surprised about any of this. We can't be surprised about them stealing a Supreme Court seat. We can't be surprised about having a 5-4 decision in 2000 that installed a president who didn't win more votes. We can't be surprised about any of this stuff anymore. It's their entire political strategy. And so, like any political strategy, we have to understand it, we have to counter it, we have to come up with our own. And I feel that despite their, marginal successes, we're doing pretty well. But we got to keep going. And it's why I'm really excited about, what we can do. It's why I'm really excited about what happened in Wisconsin. I'm really excited about trying to elect Donna Deegan. I'm really excited about doing national voter reg with young people. I'm excited about winning the economic argument. These are all things we can do. And they're things that we have to do, right? We have to do this. And that's why we're here, right, at Hopium. There's so many questions. Jay asks, how can we do more to register young voters? I think we're going to try to work on that together over the next few months, Jay. I don't know yet. There's stuff I'm doing behind the scenes. There's going to be groups like Rise and others. But it's something that you should be putting pressure on your local party and your local politicians to ask them about what they're doing. Do they understand the opportunity? The data is there. What are we all doing? This can't be somebody else's job. This has to be our collective job together. And I want to say one thing for everyone here, because this often comes up in my writing. People blame young people for not voting more. It's our fault that they're not voting more. It's our fault that we've built a political system that is so hard for people to vote. And, we're one of the only countries in the world that has voter registration. Almost no country has voter registration. It's an American voter suppression tool. Imagine designing a political system where the only time you can't register to vote is the time of maximum of interest in the election, right before the election. It's completely insane. And so, we have a very, very difficult system to participate in the United States. It's not a single registration for the whole country. It's localized. If you move, your registration goes away. So the fact that more young people aren't voting isn't their fault. This is the most socially engaged generation that we've seen potentially in American history. As you can see, by the way, based on data, not based on video of kids marching, based on attitudes compared to year to year to year to year, young people are doing their part. It's we who've let them down. And I don't ever want to hear here at Hopium anybody blaming young people for not being more socially engaged. This is the most socially engaged group of 18 to 29-year-olds, arguably in American history. And thank God, right, for them and the work they're doing. And thank God, I have 3 kids in this generation. And the things they've had to deal with, right, in terms of, social media horrors and the democracy being attacked and COVID and vaping and, all the things they have dealt with, a lot of adversity, gun violence, right? And they're coming out the other side of this stronger as leaders, not as people going and giving up. And, we should be really grateful to young people and doing everything we can to be helping them, forge a better future for their country. And thank God they're so engaged, right? But again, the fact that young people don't vote more is our fault. And it's something we should change. We have the power to change it. We should change it together. Gene asked a really interesting question. In some of the phone banking I've done, I've gotten so many people, especially young people, who don't identify with Democrats. Yeah, it's really true, by the way. And I want to talk about that for a second, because I think it's an interesting thing, is that young people are overwhelmingly left of center and overwhelmingly Democratic when they vote. They're not necessarily identifying with the party, which I think is okay, right? Like, I don't think that that's a big issue. My kids, right, kind of feel distant from the Democratic Party and organized partisan politics. But that doesn't mean that they're right of center, right? And I think that this idea that you hear from Kirsten Sinema and from others, that the biggest growing part of the American electorate are unaffiliated voters, that's kind of bullshit, right? Because you can be unaffiliated and still vote Democratic every time. And the truth is, the number of unaffiliated or independent voters in the country is about 10% of the electorate. When you push it hard, right? When you ask the question properly, it's not really growing significantly in terms of people's voter behavior. And people need to realize that independent voters are not in the middle. Independent voters are often people who are either contemptuous of their own party, so it'd be people to the left of the Democratic Party, who, like Bernie Sanders, right, who's an independent, or people very far to the right who view the Republican Party as being soft. And it's also people who are largely disengaged. They don't like politics. They think the two parties suck. And, they don't really like it. They're kind of low information voters. And so this notion that there's a left and a right and a center is not really true, by the way. And as I was saying, this left-right formulation of our politics is it's very misleading about the nature of our actual political discourse. And we can talk, more about that. So many questions here. So Jessica asked about the MAGA takeover of school boards. I don't know if you saw the story. I published it this week that in Illinois and in Wisconsin, we just beat back there's starting to be more organized efforts to prevent Republican takeovers of school boards. I just want to say to everyone here that I think that this school board stuff and the banning of books and their way that they're approaching public education is a disaster for them. It's a disaster for them. It may not be a disaster for them today, but it's a disaster for them long term. I mean, the polling on this stuff is catastrophic for the Republican Party. And Ron DeSantis, if you go back and read my big memo, which I sent today on the DeSantis president, his candidacy, 6-week abortion ban in Florida polls in Florida at 22%. The open carry initiative, permitless carry, 23%. His taking away rights of parents and intervening in Florida and banning books, 35%. And so what happened, I think, on this issue of the woke stuff and the school stuff is that the Republicans, like they do on so many things, misread the results of what happened in Virginia in 2021. What happened in Virginia in 2021 was COVID. It was about the anxiety we all had, including me, about sending our kids back to school in the fall of 2021. And the Republicans, because they're a party that's been hijacked by extremists and extremism, misread and what happened there, and have tried to turn this into this parental rights, anti-woke stuff. And there's places where that's firm ground for them, right? But they can't stand firm ground. They go into crazy town, right away. And when you look at the polling about what people want out of public education, the number one thing people want is for their kids not to get shot at school. And that's a big problem for the Republican Party because they're the party of kids getting shot at public schools. They're for that. They believe in that. They think it's good. And for them, because if they didn't think it was good, they would do something about it. They're okay with it. They're okay with kids getting shot. They're okay with a 20-year-old girl pulling into a driveway to turn her car around and getting shot. They're okay with a 6-year-old getting shot, chasing down a basketball on her street, and her father getting shot at a basketball that left her driveway. They're okay with that. They're okay with that. They're okay with 10-year-olds giving birth against their will to their rapists. They're okay with all this. We're not okay with all this. And this is why we're going to crush them in the next election, because they have become overtaken by extremists and extremism. And we have to remember the Democratic Party is strong. The country is better off. Joe Biden has been a good president. And we're going to, run up the score and get to 55 and win the next election really big. And that's what we're going to do here together at Hopium. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate your time. Sorry I didn't get into more questions. This will be up on YouTube and on Hopium if you want to share with any of your friends. And again, I need your help, right? Part of the mechanism of how this thing was going to grow was going to be the slow effort, the slow migration of my Twitter audience here. That's not going to happen now, or at least it's going to be much harder. So I need your help in going out recruiting free and paid subscribers to help grow our community here. I think you can tell the water's warm. We're having a good time. And so help me expand this community. We don't need a ton of people, but we need more. And so I need your help. And so thanks, everybody. Have a good day. We got 2 great events coming next week. You'll get a notice on that tomorrow morning. Keep the faith, keep fighting. Thanks.